You may admire him or despise him, but no one could ignore the captivating presence of Ahmad Sani, first civilian governor of Zamfara state. They call him Mujahid, the warrior, or simply Yarima, by the traditional title he holds in his hometown of Bakura. He is also known as Sadanun Zamfara, being likened both in popularity and service to the first premier of Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello. As governor and politician, he has worked hard enough to earn the respect of his people with emerging road networks, rural and urban infrastructure, giant strides in education and agriculture. But everyone knows that Yarima derives popularity from one main source, Sharia. The introduction of Sharia, the Islamic legal system, in Zamfara state on January the 27th, 2000, has made the state governor a compelling newsmaker. The weeks preceding its launch and the weeks following witnessed an unprecedented media debate with Yarima at the center of it all. Within Zamfara state and beyond its borders, Yarima's personality has become so alluring that even political opponents have turned to compulsive advice. But beyond the facade of religious and political gatherings, how real is Yarima's popularity? In other words, was Sharia introduced out of conviction or simply to deceive the people and gain cheap political support? We began to probe. Is Sharia politics or faith? Our independent search for an answer brought us here. The year is 1994, the city is Sokoto. By the end of the third quarter of the year, the mood of the nation was defined by 4 or 5 main events. On the environmental side, flood was devastating many areas of the north. In public service, the probe into the activities of the customs services was capturing significant media attention. To the ordinary man, the most significant happening of the period was the increase of the pump price of the petroleum products, which took a litre of petrol from 3 naira 50 kobo to 11 naira. As for politics, there was very little apart from the initial debates at the National Constitutional Conference. Except for this, the military were fully in control. Indeed, in the same week, General Abacha announced the expansion of membership of the Provisional Ruling Council, PRC, from 11 to 25. During the same period, an event of insignificant news value was taking place in an area of Sokoto city where a certain director in the state civil service called Ahmad Sani built a 6x6 facility to serve as a mosque and a study room. The commissioning was witnessed by a capacity crowd of 17.
First, what I want to talk about is that since I parked into this house, we used to study the Quran with Malam Abubakar Silami as our teacher. But we had to sit in the open air, so we thought it would be a good idea to find a small reading room. This idea, with the assistance and blessing of Allah, led me to build this room to be used both as a mosque and a reading room. However, when the construction started, a new thought came to me that aside from reading and praying, this facility can be used by Muslims who are interested and also committed in bringing about changes in Nigeria, especially regarding the establishment of Sharia. In the process, we hope to use the ideas which emerge such that either during or after our lifetimes, Sharia may be fully established in Sokoto State and eventually Nigeria.
Remember, this was 2 years before the creation of Zamfara State, 1 year after the June 12, 1993 election, and 4 years before the creation of the All People's Party, APP. It was at a time when only the very daring could make any statement that was not in total conformity with the wishes of the military. Little wonder when subsequent speakers tried to modify what they thought was Yarima's dangerous statement, just in case those in authority were listening.
I am before my teachers. As such, I should not talk too much about knowledge. What I want to say is in relation to the comments made by Malam Ahmed Sani. As we know, from the time of the Prophet, a mosque is a place of study, a place for jihad, and a place for meetings and consultations between Muslims. That Malam Ahmed Sani said this place can be used to campaign for the establishment of Sharia. Well, the study of the Quran is also Sharia. I know that some mischief makers may go to other places and say we are trying to start a Sharia revolution here in order to cause confusion. What Malam Ahmed Sani means is that this place may be used to teach children and adults about Sharia so that they may understand the Islamic injunctions better, because the Quran is the foundation of Islam.
To ascertain the consistency of Ahmed Sani on Sharia, we also looked at his campaign speeches. He made no secret of his intention to introduce Sharia and shared this conviction with the electorate at every opportunity. So, if Yarima had this conviction about Sharia long before the creation of Zamfara State and made no secret of it through the electioneering period, how accurate is it to suggest that Sharia came to him as an afterthought when, having been elected governor, he was seeking additional political relevance? In a recent interview, Yarima was asked how, as a product of Western education with no history of religious fundamentalism, no claim to extraordinary knowledge in religion, no record of revolutionary thoughts or action, he came about Sharia.
You are correct that I am a product of Western education, with no record of religious or social extremism and no claim to extraordinary knowledge. However, I am also a Muslim, a product of Islamic education. Since graduating from university, I have been an ordinary civil servant with working experience in Sokoto and Lagos, among other places. To put it simple and straightforward, I am a Nigerian from a modest social background and with an unfaltering belief in the Almighty Allah SWT, like most of my countrymen who are either Muslims or Christians. Having been born and brought up here, I have keenly observed the development of our nation and followed sometimes through the media various efforts made by our leaders to put the country on a sound social and economic footing. I have similarly witnessed the problems that have bedeviled the attainment of set objectives over the years. From independence in 1960 to 1994, when I made my first pronouncement on Sharia, our leaders have grappled with the same social problems and made repeated comments about them. Lack of work ethics, diminishing patriotism, corruption, greed, selfishness, abuse of human rights, armed robbery, waste of human and material resources, abuse of public office, and confidence, arson, dishonesty, 419, drug abuse and peddling, torture, assassination, injustice, marginalization, uncultured behavior, and general loss of values and ethics. The legacies of moral uprightness established by Dr. Nnamdi Azikwe, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Sir Ahmadu Bello Saduna of Sokoto, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Mala Aminu Kano, and other independent warriors. The legacies established by them were being rapidly lost. Things degenerated so fast that by the time General Murtala Muhammad assumed office in 1975, these problems that I mentioned were the main stumbling blocks to the realization of national objectives.
There was therefore no alternative but to apply firm and, in some cases, drastic measures in order to set the stage for healthier and more efficient services.
General Obasanjo, who succeeded General Murtala Muhammad, and who by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our president today, made many efforts to reawaken our sensitivities to national values and ethics. His famous Jaji Declaration, where he described indiscipline as a major development problem, remains one of the most sincere appraisals of the Nigerian society. Yet these problems persisted. Things got so bad that the government of Alhaji Shehu Shagari, Turakin Sokoto, thought it necessary to create a whole ministry in charge of national guidance, with respected orator and statesman Dr. Yusuf Maitama Sule, Damasan Kanu, as its minister.
So the purpose of creating that ministry was to fight corruption, it was also to raise the moral tone of the society and to instill discipline. Situation in the country, which I have often described as such. The institution of family has broken down. Respect for elders and constituted authority, which used to be a cardinal principle in our society, is at its lowest ebb. Honesty, where it does not pay, has become meaningless. Symptoms of revolt loom large in the horizon. In short, there is meaninglessness in philosophy, insecurity in politics, chaos in politics, corruption in economy, immorality in society, indiscipline everywhere, frustration in art, lack of creativity in literature. What Nigeria needed then, and still does need, is discipline.
When General Buhari came, the problems were still there. His government launched the famous war against indiscipline.
Corruption, condominium, misuse and abuse of public office for self or group aggrandizement, which had assumed debilitating proportions in the last few years, will be dealt with ruthlessly, no matter whoever may be involved.
Decrees were promulgated against corruption and peddling in hard drugs. Convicts were given erroneous jail terms or even shot according to the provisions of the law. Generals Babangida and Abacha too made their contributions to arrest national indiscipline and the slide towards total moral decadence and ethical degeneration. However, these problems are still with us. We created so many establishments and enacted so many laws: the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, the Code of Conduct and Public Complaint Commissions, the Armed Robbery and Firearms Tribunals, the National Drugs Law Enforcement Agency, the National Human Rights Commission, the Drugs and Financial Crimes Department, the Failed Bank Tribunals, the Anti-Graft Law, etc., and so many. The problem still remains. I began to think the vast majority of Nigerians believe in God, either as Christians or as Muslims. Agencies and tribunals have failed to solve the problems. As people who believe in God Almighty and religion, I thought the best way to address these problems, which have stunted our growth as a nation, would be to return to God and His laws and His teachings. Luckily for us, our religion addresses all these issues: justice, fairness, service to the people, honesty, good neighborliness, good conduct, human rights, democracy, even crime and punishment. I'm a Muslim and happen to be at the helm of affairs in a state where 99% of our people share the same faith. Luckily, they too see the need to correct the ills of the society by engendering a system in which they believe. That's all we are doing. And in doing so, we are aware of the rights, beliefs, and practices of the Christians that lived with us. And we are fully protecting these rights.
Thank you, Your Excellency. After 1 year of the implementation of Sharia in Zamfara State, the most publicized aspect of it in the Nigerian media has been the amputation of a theft convict and the apparent cruelty in that act. So apart from amputation, in what way has Sharia benefited the people of Zamfara State?
First, let me start with the amputation issue. If you follow the media reports, the amputee in this case, who is a believer in Islamic faith and Sharia, has no problem coming to terms with the consequences of his action. Let me also briefly address this issue of cruelty. In the Nigerian legal system, a convicted armed robber is tied to a stake and shot to death. Indeed, even if you use a toy weapon and instill the fear of a true weapon in the psyche of a person being robbed, the punishment is death by firing squad. So which is more cruel or severe, amputation or death by firing squad? Or look at the instances where of every human being to his fellow human beings are all contained under Sharia. For example, there are communities in Nigeria where widows suffer untold hardship, where relations of the deceased husband take over his estate, leaving nothing to the widow. Under Sharia, sharing of inheritance is clearly defined, and rights of and entitlements of every relative is fixed in percentage terms. As for the achievements of the Sharia in the last 1 year, we have cause to thank the Almighty Allah SWT that today we have the lowest crime rate in the Federation. We are one of the most peaceful states. In government, we have achieved a lot in service of the people. Sharia has engendered a system of prudence and transparency in public service. If you go around Zamfara State now, you will see the number of projects undertaken within just 1 year, from rural roads to rural power and water supply, from urban roads and housing to government secretariat and other public buildings, from education to agriculture. In every sphere of service, we have executed projects that would have consumed 2 or 3 times the resources spent before the establishment of Sharia. In fact, that is why people are even asking, where do we get money? Saudi Arabia or any other country, Islamic country, and we never get anything other than the normal statutory allocation from the Federation account and our locally generated revenue.
On the social side, women who had been living in the disreputable trade of prostitution have been assisted by government, and hundreds of them have been admitted to the dignity of marriage. Women who have had to struggle with men for seats in taxis and other commercial vehicles now have their own transport system, which is far safer and more dignified than the motorcycle. In education, over 1,400 Islamic schools have been established throughout the state, while all areas of Western education have been improved. Girls had almost negligible enrollment figures before this administration. Now government has established a special department responsible only for the education of the girl child. Unemployment is being seriously addressed, both for the skilled and unskilled youth. Morale of civil servants has been raised, with Zamfara being the first state government to increase the salaries of civil servants. In agriculture, the development of rural infrastructure and the provision and judicious distribution of fertilizer and other inputs is already yielding fruit. And it is only a matter of time before the groundnut and cotton pyramids which characterize Zamfara's glory days adorn the skylines again. There is no doubt that the Zamfara government has to work harder to be better understood on Sharia, but surely there are positive changes everywhere. You may not easily come to terms with the restrictions on the sale and consumption of alcohol, though you know no religion encourages these. You may not fully understand the value of segregating services, but you know they make life easier for women. You may never see the value and civility of amputation as punishment if you are used to the firing squad. But from the look of things, Sharia is making things better in Zamfara. Already, the government and people of Kano, Bauchi, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Katsina have either established or are in the process of establishing Sharia in their areas. There is no doubt the implementation of Sharia has made Ahmed Sani exceptionally popular, and that happens to all leaders who follow their people's wishes. But as to whether Sharia was a deceptively convenient political afterthought, let's go back to 1994.
Ko cikin rayuwarmu ko kuma bayan rayuwarmu a samu tsaida shari'a ta addinin musulunci a nan jihar Sokoto kamin a kai ga kasar Najeriya baki daya. Allah ya cika mana nuhin mu kuma Allah ya taimake mu. Assalamu alaikum jama'a.